Welcome to the JAMODI podcast. We are all surrounded by amazing coaches and leaders. So let's get an inside look at not just what they do, but how they do what they do. After all, becoming the best versions of ourselves is JAMODI, just a matter of doing it. You're one of the best shooters. I still remember the first time I saw you was, I think we weren't even at the Student Life Center. We were back in it's to the left of the Student Life Center in those back gyms. And I'm, going through my routine. We're about to play pickup. And then I see this, like skinny guy running, going full speed, shooting threes from wing to wing on his own, not missing very much. And I thought, what the crap? Like, I mean, they're bringing a guy that does this better than me. Like, I didn't know who you were, and then found out that you were going to be, helping and coaching and stuff, but you're one of the best shooters I've ever been around. So with your program, how do you teach shooting confidence with your players?
Well, back to that, I was just trying to stay in shape for intramurals. Baylor had some great intramurals, man, and I'm just living the dream now that everything was over for me playing. I was just ready for intramurals, dude.
Right.
And I loved it still. I love to work. I love to work hard. Love that part of the game. I think that's such a difficult question is when you talk about confidence in players. And I've talked with a number of coaches about that just this year, I think more than ever, in trying to figure out what's the best approach to it. Because I think it's a little bit of a chicken or the egg, which comes first kind of question is, does the confidence of the coach come first of, man, Matt, I believe in you. Go out there, do this. I believe in you to do this and this and this. Or does the confidence come first from the player showing I have the ability to do this and to get it done, which gives then the coach the confidence? And I don't know if there's an exact right answer to that, because I think it can be 6 of one, half dozen of the other. And I think it depends on perspective and probably depends on where you're at any given time, depends on the relationship. But
I'll give you the answer. Do you? I
give it, man.
I believe there is, and you're right on the money. It's a trick question, and I don't do it to. Obviously, not trying to fool people, but it 100% comes from player first, because no coach can give a player confidence in a skill that player knows deep down he does not have, has not put in the time for, hasn't earned the right to be confident in that.
Yeah.
Now, what coaches can do is not steal confidence, because I don't even like that. Players can give their confidence away, but I don't even think if a player is truly confident because they put in the time and they're thinking the right thoughts all throughout the day of what they're doing, negative comments from a coach should bounce off them. But I think what coaches can do is lessen or make players second guess their confidence a little bit on really, can I do this, or really more take away creativity with shooting. But that's my answer.
And I think within that, a couple of things come to mind is one, I shouldn't be saying negative things to my shooters or probably my players in general. And it's not about like I have to coddle players, but what good does that do?
Right.
I think a better approach is often just, asking questions. How can I ask more questions? And I think it comes back to, again, awareness. Yeah. And I think that's one of the things that, as I've studied and done a deep dive with Alan and Simon this year into who I am as a coach and what I value, I think what part of it is helping players learn to assess who they are. And that's anybody that does that is, it's a difficult, painful, humiliating at times type process. It's hard to swallow that stuff for any of us as a coach or as a player. I really believe that when players say, I'm really confused about what you want, and I don't know, I'm confused out there. I don't know what shots to shoot and what not to shoot. I could be wrong on this. I fully admit that. And maybe a week from now, I will change my tune because someone will speak life into me or rip me apart on this. I don't believe that's, I think if you were to ask questions of that player instead of just speak into it, if you ask questions, I find that I can't imagine one conversation where I've really tried to dig in instead of just saying, no, you do this. You know, if I'm digging into these players to ask questions and peel it back, they already know what's a good shot or what I say is a good shot. They just don't want to accept it. And I think that often becomes more of the thing. You know, it could be a player that believes, man, I am really good at 30-foot 3-point shot, you know, and it's like, no, man, you're not. And it's like, man, you just don't give me confidence.
Yeah.
Or it's, you know, I had a player several years ago and he was shooting a lot of threes off of a ball screen. And I said, you know, I just don't think that's a good shot for us. It's not a good, you know, investment of our shot because you're not making a high percentage. And using synergy, we could go back through that. And we looked at him and we saw, okay, you're 3 of 27 on that shot. So, okay, it's not a good shot. Now, at the same time, it can go the other way. I had this really special shooter this year who, man, he's got some crazy game and he's like a Steph Curry where he can pull all over and some crazy shots. And I'm like, what are you doing sometimes? And we're talking late in the season, and I just think, you know, we talk about, and I love this. I got this from another coach: A shots, B shots, and F shots. And we try to talk about A shots are great shots, B shots are okay shots. Everything else is an F. There's not some in between. And so we would talk about, hey, we don't want early B shots in possessions. We're all about early A shots, but don't take early B shots. And I said, I think part of the reason your percentage isn't up there is we're taking too many early B shots. And he's just like, he's nice about this. He's just like, coach, he's like, I think I'm shooting really well on those. And so we go to synergy. All right, let's watch the last 5 games of this. And dang, if the kid wasn't right, the dude's shooting like 45% on early B shots, like crazy shots. And he's shooting terrible from wide open shots later in the possession. We're like, all right, I guess you just need to wait for someone to get on.
Yeah, he wants that extra degree of difficulty.
Yeah, it can go the other way, but I think it all comes back to, can I assess and teach them to assess and teach, gosh, the more that they arrive at conclusions, the more they're going to own it. If I'm telling them everything, they're not going to own a lot of that. You know, we tried it this year. I've never done this. And we, you know, trying to work on some shot selection for honestly just a player or two. So we did this with the whole group. Is I'd have like 2 players, you and I would get together and I'd say, we're going to watch the last 3 games of shots that each other shot. And you're going to evaluate mine. I'm going to evaluate yours. A, B, or F. Yeah. And I think you do that. And then they're going to talk to me about it real quick. And it just, anything we can do to create awareness and learning to assess ourselves, help us see ourselves better. And without that, how are you going to create change? If you can't assess yourself, I mean, awareness is often enough to motivate change. I mean, you've got to have some type of awareness, and that process starts with being able to see reality clearly.
Yeah, 2 things there. The one, like you mentioned, if a player says he's confused or he doesn't know the shots to take, you better make sure alarms better go off. Am I clearly communicating what our shot selection standards are for our team? Because I think that maybe in high school or definitely a select ball, whatever, I just think that that's an area where we forget quite a bit. We'll just use vague terminology. Guys, only good shots right now. You got 5 different dudes thinking that they're good shots, something else. Hey, fellas, no more bad shots. Well, he's not talking to me. He's obviously talking to him. Yeah. So you got to eliminate those. But then, so once you figure out, you know, I do a decent job of teaching that, then you ask him and you peel the layers, like you said, and you're right on the money. It comes down to he does think it's good, which then I feel like we can take the responsibility back on us to either through synergy, or what I like to do is through training, show them. And so like if a player comes up and says, coach, or a parent comes up and says, and I'm in my driveway, I always make this, I've rebounded for him when it's sunny, there's no wind, there's no pressure, and everything's great, he knocks this down. I don't care about that. In our shooting games that we play all the time, and it could be any game, but typically where the ones where they are shots like the ones we'll get in games, from the spots we'll get in games, from our shooting games, with all of the tracking we do and all of the times that we yell out our scores, that we say, keep your hand up if you make this or that, we're writing their numbers down over 2 to 3 months. You will know. you can't tell me that's a good shot when we can go back to data, months and months of it, or synergy like you're talking about. And then they're still reluctant at the very end. Well, I never want to use the bench as a weapon, but ultimately, if shot selection is the reason why games are won and lost, any 8-point loss is one bad shot a quarter.
Yeah.
So I have to make sure that we're putting the right guys on the floor that will value the most important part of the game.
Yeah. No, I agree. And we don't do a lot to quantify everything and record all that. It's just manpower wise, that just takes a lot sometimes to do all that stuff. And I have the ability to recruit the guys we want. So there's not a lot of guys I recruit that's not able to knock down a three. And so I want guys that are then able to play with that confidence. And then it's just more about which shots of those are you free to take versus others, and you have the ultimate green light, or, what's a good shot for you. I have that luxury as a college coach of recruiting that.
Yeah.
And so then I think, we're just getting guys who can shoot the ball. And I love the idea of being able to record all that, because I do think,
and when I say record, when I say record too, it's as easy as, so we do a Ray Allen shooting game where you've got you've got your 5 ladders on the floor, and on each ladder there are 6 levels. You make level 1, you go to level 2, all the way back. Anytime you miss, you come back to the beginning. And so the goal is to make 6 in a row, you get a point. Well, after our 2-minute game, we switch partners. 2 minutes. All right, everybody run in. Raise your hand if you made 1 or more ladders. I mean, that's recording. Yeah, like that to me. Like, and so I can do that with 30 players. Yeah. So yeah, I am not by any means jotting everything down. We have our major game, green, yellow, red shooting, that we will write. And that's such an important time for role identification. If a player is somewhat open, but in a free-flowing system, another player is very open, and that guy makes a higher number than me consistently, I've heard his number again and again. It just helps me reinforce that.
No, I'm with you. And then, but every now and then you get an outlier too in that. And we had one that just finished, and he was a multiple-time All-American. And he knows it. I hate watching him shoot in practice. If he's at this basket, I'm turning my back to it. And he works hard. It has nothing to do with how he works. But he just doesn't shoot well in practice. But man, he hits shots in games.
Gamers are real. And I think that's the beauty of it is you build a system and structure where they're hopefully building their own confidence, but then they also know that in a game, if I demonstrate that I can, what we would call a contested jump shot, if I can hit some 6s, coach isn't going to be mad at me when I knock down a 6, but there will constantly be reminders. Hey, can we be more patient for 7s? Can we take our time a little bit? But yeah, I think you're right on the money.
Yeah. Good. And then, whether it's related to that, you can tell me if you want to get into this, but along with the shooting, I think I could talk into, if you want, a couple of things we do to try to develop our shooters, or develop
let's do that, please.
That ability. So we, again, kind of throwing a lot of things at the wall and seeing what sticks kind of method. I think over the last couple of years, a couple of things that I've liked. One, our players liked a whole lot more than the other, but I'll tell you 2 of them. One is just we're going to record some shooting on a board in the locker room. We just took, so a big dry erase board, took some tape, divided into it like a grid, and we kind of have each player's name along one side, have the date that we can write in up at the top, and have like a 2-week stretch, say, of it on there. We did one at one point. There was a month-long one you could see at a time, and we had a certain small shooting thing that they needed to do. I mean, I'm talking small, where it's it might be something that takes 10 or 15 minutes, and that's it. That's all we're asking of you. But I feel like it's almost like if you can find that tipping point for each person, what's that thing that, I mean, if you get in the gym and you shoot for 15 minutes, you do like your workout, you're pretty likely to stay longer. You're not likely to think, I did my 15, I'm done, I'm out of here.
That's true. Yeah.
But for a lot of people, it's what is that tipping point? For somebody, is it, man, every day I'm going to go in the locker room and put my shoes on. I mean, because if you go in the locker room and you put your shoes on and get laced up, maybe you got, you're older now. If Matt goes in there and puts on his headband, his rec specs, and his knee braces and everything else, you go in there, with your Kurt Rambis outfit, and you're like, if I can do that, I'm going to go ahead and shoot. I'm not going to go through all that work and take it all back off to go back to bed. So you got to find out what's the tipping point for people. So what we did is we tried to come up with a very easy shooting thing standard that they needed to get done. And then I borrowed this. I can't remember where I got it from, but someone talked about the Seinfeld streak. I don't know if you've ever heard of that. So Jerry Seinfeld, back in the day, as a comedian, I had heard talked about, hey, the key to being a great comedian, you got to constantly write more material, and you got to always be doing it. And it's a hard discipline to do. And so one of the things he would do to help that is, like, say you take a calendar, you print off a calendar, and I'm gonna write material for 15 minutes a day. And after you do day one, you cross it with an X, a big red X. You do the next day, big red X. And so what you're doing is, over the course of time, you start building a streak. And there's power in a streak, because all of a sudden now you start building a big enough streak where you haven't missed a day. Now it becomes not just, it's hard to get in there. Do I want to get in there? Now it's, I don't want to break the streak. And it's, how long can I keep this streak going? And so when we did this, we had a couple of my guys that I don't know how much they ever got in the gym. And they were good players for us. That just wasn't part of who they were on their own. They both did it for over a month without taking a day off. I had another player, I think, did it for the entire summer. And, you start becoming a bit neurotic probably with some of these things. And it's, hey, I'm going to be going out tonight. I want to go hang out with some friends. I'm going to make sure I get this in then first, because I don't want to blow my streak. I'm leaving at 7 a.m. for a trip. I'm going to get up at 5 so I can go get this streak in, so I can keep that going. And so we talk about going streaking, and, we just kind of reframed what we mean by going.
You got to have that Will Ferrell quote right above it.
We're going streaking. And so I think there's a lot of power to that. And I love that. And that resonates with me a lot. This year we changed it. Instead of that, we just tried hey, this is a challenge of this many shots made over a course of a 6-week stretch, this many each week. So can you average at least this many each week and get this many done by the end of it? So now you can choose, maybe I want to take certain days off, or I want to work really hard getting the extra shots for these 3 or 4 days and not the other days. And it gave, there's a part of me that cringes. I'm like, no, you should be in there every day. Like, who doesn't want to be in there?
Don't give them the out.
Yeah. But, I ask all of my players, and it's funny, every single one of them would choose that method over the other. And part of it, I realize, is most people aren't wired like me, with that. And that's not a right or wrong thing. It's probably some wrong in that with me, because I could be neurotic with that of, hey, I don't want to break a streak. And, I did that as a player, just a below average kind of college player trying to play back in the day. And I think my streak was 5 years. Wow. And I was neurotic about that kind of stuff. And so I think everybody else should do that. I think I don't want to let them off the hook and never do a streak, because I think that's a really good thing, is, can you make that kind of discipline for a certain stretch? But I think there's still just something, can we get them to do something? Yeah. And something's better than nothing. And all of a sudden, some of these guys might just, hey, I'm going to average this many a day. But some guys, it's, hey, I want to take the weekends off. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just because every player is going to be different. And every player's got to make the decision of, this is what I'm willing to do, recognizing, what it takes. And, I heard a great quote that kind of goes along with that. I think Kipling said something like, if you don't get what you want, it's a sign that either you didn't take it seriously enough, or that you tried to bargain over the price. And that's what it takes. I think most of us just try to bargain. I want to be great. I'm not good first. I don't, again, going back to, do I want to be good first? But this is what it takes. Well, how about just this? Will this get me there? Will this get me to great? And we try to bargain. Yeah.
Yeah. You had a really good point about how the way that you used to play, you trained. I mean, not many players become coaches. It's a small amount of the actual people that really played the game and then become coaches themselves. But I would imagine most of those players that become coaches, they probably weren't lazy players, most of them. Yeah. And we had an athletic director here at Faith that had a great reminder to me. He's like, Matt, we're the weird ones. Like, we are the weird ones. It's not that there's anything wrong with them, the players, it's us. And you just kind of, the way that you are wired, the way I was, and the way that a lot of players that become coaches are like, this is our job. We're taking it mentally or the priority to another level that most players just won't ever get to. And either they'll become great, or they'll just finish being good. And it's all based on, those choices that they make.
Yeah. Yeah. And I feel like the longer I've coached, I mean, I try to recruit guys that are going to work hard. Although every coach, every high school coach tells me their kid's a gym rat and everybody's a gym rat the
So
first
not
week.
true.
Everybody's a gym rat though the first week of school, and then almost nobody's a gym rat.
Yeah.
And like that's what we hear as a college coach from a lot of people. But things change, priorities change in college, and you get these different freedoms. And I think this is a hard thing to do as a coach. But if I'm going to do this on a long-term basis, in any way, I think there's things that I've got to accept that kids are different, and it's trying to find out. It goes back to the relationship with the guys. Can you get to know them? Can you help understand what they want?
Yeah.
Can you help try to figure out what motivates them? And it can't be me. I'm not going to be in this so long that like I'm going to be the prime motivator, because that just it takes a lot of energy to do what we do as coaches. And I don't lament over that. I don't complain over that, but I want to give most of my energy to my family.
Yeah.
And I can't just pour myself out and be out from that. I need guys who are motivated to do stuff. And I think what is more helpful as a coach, and I read a great book from Dr. Stephen Rolnick. He talks about motivational interviewing in athletics. That was the name of it. He called it coaching athletes to be their best. And he talks about motivational interviewing as a phrase I think he coined. But it's the idea that as a coach, you're a guide. And that's a hard thing, because I don't think that's how, I mean, most of the things we do in coaching, it's just, hey, what did we learn from? What did other coaches are doing, or what we see the coaches that we worked under or played for, or we saw in a video, versus are we asking, what's the best way, for guys, for our kids? And it's how can I coach these athletes to be their best? And so by doing that, it's a long play to do it this way, not a short-term thing, but can I guide them and help them arrive at the things that we need to arrive at? And can I show that just wild curiosity about them? And those are hard things to do. And it's hard to remember when it's so much easier just to give and just tell what to do,
Yeah. But you know what,
it's so much better.
That guide idea, what that does though, that's really freeing to me, because I would enjoy being their guide. I don't enjoy feeling like I'm leading them and me, or pushing them, pleading with them. And because then too, if it's really me that's responsible for them being the success they say they want, if they don't, then I've screwed up. I've let them down. And those failures, even just 9 years of being a head coach, 15 years overall, like those failures are the things that unfortunately are really hard to get past. But I think if it was more of, and even just like you had said early on about being vulnerable of, hey guys, I'm going to screw up. Also take the stance of, listen guys, like I'm a co-contributor. Like I'm a guide with you. I'm step by step with you for what you want. Yeah. And I'll give you some advice from times, and I'll hold you accountable sometimes with, what I think you could be doing more based on what you said you want. But this isn't going to be a deal where I'm going to pull you across. And I think you've said a lot of impactful things. I think that will help a lot.
Well, and it kind of gives me the picture, Matt, of thinking about if I'm, I don't want to be just straight motivator. And it's not a wrong thing. I know there are coaches that do that, and that's who they are. And I'm not putting that down. But like, I think of a picture of a straight motivator as I'm standing behind you, just leaning in, straight pushing you the whole time,
with
like going up a hill. Yeah. And I mean, and we talk about, this is not easy, because we talk about this line going from ordinary to extraordinary. And it's not a straight continuum. It's more of a mountain. And so you're leaning into it, trying to push up. And so I'm either pushing behind like that, motivating. I'm in front of them trying to pull, and I'm constantly looking over my shoulder to see, are they following? Are they coming with? Or I'm a guide. I'm alongside them, and I'm saying, let's get there together. And it's just, there are times I think we need to move into some of those different roles within that too, as we try to guide. But I just like that picture so much better of we're going to do this together.
Thank you for checking out today's episode. Please take a moment to subscribe to this podcast, share it with your fellow coaches, and find us on social media for what's coming up next on the JAMODI podcast. It's just a matter of doing it.